Welcome in everyone to this episode of Craze's Corner. We're going to be talking about some free agency winners and losers when it comes to their fantasy football value. So you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned for that. But first, we're going to get to some news. The NFL does have a new overtime rule, which will now guarantee each team a possession in the playoff games only. This is not coming into effect in the regular season. If the playoffs go well, it's something that I think the owners will look into implementing in the future. But currently, this is just for postseason games. The NFL also decided to not change the taunting rule. They decided that there was only 4 missed calls when it came to taunting last season, which I definitely don't agree with. I think there was a lot more, but the NFL is keeping that rule. And the biggest news of today, which is Wednesday, is that Bruce Arians has retired as the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He will be moving into a head office role, and the Buccaneers have passed the head coaching job off to Todd Bowles, who was just given a new 5-year contract extension to stay with the Bucs and be their head coach for the next 5 seasons. We'll see how that all pans out for the Bucs now that they have Brady back. Kind of surprised by the timing. I would have thought if Arians was going to retire, he would have done it back when Tom Brady retired as well. But he decided to do it now for some reason. I'm sure we will be taking that. We'll be talking about that all offseason, depending on how this goes for the Bucs. And then KC might have a new running back number 1 with Ronald Jones. The addition of Ronald Jones for the Chiefs is just a 1-year deal, but this does really hurt Clyde Edwards-Helaire value. We'll be talking about him a little later. But yeah, Ronald Jones, and reportedly Andy Reid has said that he's going to be involved in the offense a lot. So we will see how much. Tyreek Hill's not there anymore. They're going to need someone to step up. Maybe it'll be Ronald Jones in that running game, getting things going for the Chiefs. With the Tyreek Hill trade and with the addition of Ronald Jones, do you guys still think that the Kansas City Chiefs have the best chance to win the AFC West? Let us know using the Media app. The Media app is a virtual press conferencing app that allows you to host your own virtual press conference from your phone. It's super quick, super easy. You record it. You can change your backgrounds out. And then once you've done that, you can post it to any social media right from the app. So definitely go check that out. It's available on the Google Play and the App Store. And now let's welcome in our guests. We have Zach, Jeff, and Will. Welcome in, guys.
Woo-hoo! How you doing?
Doing pretty good. What are your guys' thoughts on the Bruce Arians retirement? Zach, we'll start with you. Are you surprised as I was when this news broke?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's just not usual. Coaches just up and quit, I guess. But I think we talked about it before. I was like, probably just doesn't want to be coached anymore, and he probably doesn't want to coach either. So I don't know.
He's getting up there in age. Head office is probably best for him at this point. Anything Jeff or Will want to add to that Bruce Arians situation before we move on to our fantasy football winners and losers of the offseason?
I'm just going to add some fuel to the fire. I think there is some truth then that there are issues between Brady and Arians. There's no reason why he would go ahead and just back out all of a sudden a week after Tom Brady decides to come back. I think that might have been one of the things that had to be put in place for Brady to come back, and they're just trying to figure out how we're going to make it happen to go ahead and make it look good.
Yeah, I think we will see, because if the Bucs don't pan out now, is it Bruce Arians is gone is the reason, or is it that the other half of the team is gone? And then what's going to happen with Brady? So we'll definitely have to stay tuned for that. We're going to get right into some fantasy football winners after this offseason. I'm going to start us off with, in my opinion, the biggest winner of the offseason, which for me is Derek Carr. Derek Carr has the addition of Devontae Adams. I think that's going to be bad additions, really going to help him when it comes to that red zone. He does still have Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, and the yards were there for Carr last year with over 4,800 yards. The touchdowns just didn't come, but I think the addition of Devontae Adams, who is a known red zone threat, definitely helps out with that because Hunter Renfrow isn't quite that big, possession receiver that you need when it comes down to the red zone. And Edwards was inconsistent last season, so I think this addition, Zach talked about that 32 touchdown mark for Derek Carr last week, and I think he hits that this year for sure. For me, huge winner is Derek Carr with the addition of Devontae Adams. They've continued to reassure that offensive line. I think this offense is going to be much improved on the back of Derek Carr, who I think finishes as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. Zach, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts? Derek Carr, you think he will hit that 32 touchdown mark with Devontae Adams?
Seems like such a low bar to set for a quarterback in 2022 with Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow. So, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see him doing it for sure. So, but just kind of puts into perspective that, he's always this fringe top 15, top 12 quarterback, and yet his touchdowns totals are like straight out of 1997. So, but yeah, no, I like it. He's definitely, for sure, anytime you get one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, you certainly are a candidate for off-season winner.
Yeah, Jeff and Will, anything you guys want to add to Derek Carr? Are you excited about, this new look Raiders offense with Josh McDaniels? Still a little nervous because it's Derek Carr and the Raiders.
To me, that's the wild card. Is Josh McDaniels' offense? What's it going to look like? Honestly, I think now it's putting Derek Carr into a make or break season. If he does not excel past what he's done prior years, now you're looking at, okay, is this the quarterback that we need to go ahead and utilize the weapons that we have? So I'm hoping, that he will go ahead and break out, if you will, but I don't know. It's kind of up in the air right now for me.
I mean, their schedule's
he's got a lot of,
right? I mean, their schedule's not bad. They're playing the NFC West. Looks like, am I right? Yeah, NFC West, and they're playing the AFC North. From the looks of it. So, he should put up decent numbers. If he can't do it now, then he's done with the Raiders. He's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a lot of money on the line this season. He's got to perform. Yeah. He will be moving on. But let's move on to Zach's first one. That homer pick he's got in there for him, but your pick is going to be Tua. Go ahead. Talk about Tua with his new look offense in Miami.
You guys heard me rant enough, so I won't do that to you anymore. I'm just happy. It took us a absolute blemish of a disgusting issue with Brian Flores to maybe the ownership and front office go, hey, listen, we actually have to build a team here. Enough and like playing around. I couldn't have asked for two better lineman pickups with Connor Williams and Teron Armstead. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill trade is just outstanding. And a lot of people say we gave up a lot. We still have a first-round pick next season, too, on top of it. So it's like we didn't really give up the whole kitchen sink, But I love everything for Tua this year, even the crazy running back signings with Mostert and Chase Edmonds. I love McDaniel, the new head coach, as goofy as he is and as absolutely corny and cringy he is to watch and listen to. I really think he is one of those masterminds, up and coming, offensive minds in the game. So if this is another one of those cases where if this guy can't do it now, I mean, Tua's just not a starter if he can't get it done. He's never been a flashy quarterback. He's just as accurate as it comes, and he barely turns the ball over. He needs to run the ball more, and I think that will come with having the ability to have at least more than one blink of a second with pass protection. He's every single play. If you pull up game tape of Tua, it doesn't take long to realize that this guy's under pressure every single play. So massive upgrade at the offensive line. You give him some of the best weapons in the NFL. I mean, not many quarterbacks get a Christmas of an offseason like this. So let's go. Fins up for Tua.
Fins up.
Yeah, I think definitely a big improvement. And I know Will wants to talk about the Dolphins as well. So Will, let us know what you think of the Dolphins.
I mean, I like the offensive line signings because I think that's important. I like the boldness. I like that they got a new coach, and I like that they said, "Yeah, we'll take Tyreek Hill, and we'll pay him." And I was reading today, he talking about returning punts, which makes me a little nervous. But it's just it's like they saw the Rams model. Right? We all see the Rams model. They traded away picks for veterans, quality veterans, stars, right?
Hmm.
And some teams are kind of like, yeah, no, that's not who we are. We're going to build for the draft. The Dolphins said, why not? And I think the fortune favors the bold. And in that division, well, the Dolphins have to be the projected first place team heading into the season.
Over the Bills? Over the Bills.
I'm going to say yes. Right now, I'm going to go with that.
In the AFC?
No, in the AFC East. I'm going to go with the Dolphins in the AFC East.
The Bills are the Super Bowl favorites right now.
Well, I'm going with the Dolphins. Sorry.
Speaking of the Bills, one last thing on since you brought up the Bills, Tua versus Josh Allen in their first 20 starts. Okay, Tua's got him beat in passing yards. They both have thrown 32 touchdowns. Tua has less interceptions, a higher completion percentage, and a better win-loss record. So sometimes you
Josh
just have
Allen
to
was terrible his first 2 years.
Right. Tua was good.
Yeah.
So it's like, so you look at it, and what did they do? You make a trade for who? Stefan Diggs. So, how much did that elevate his game? So I like like you said, Will, I think fortune favors the bold, and McDaniels lead us to the promised land.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Tua is definitely a big winner after this offseason. But for me, when I'm looking at the rest, Tyreek Hill's value is lower than it was in Kansas City for me. Jalen Waddle's value is lower than it was now. I think Cedric Wilson's value is now lower than what it was in Dallas. I think Mike Gesicki's value drops now that they have Tyreek Hill. And to me, the running back position, bring in Mostert and Chase Edmonds. I think that pretty much shores up running back by committee, so you don't want that. And I think that means Myles Gaskin, they're both done for. So I definitely get the Tua winning, but the rest of the Dolphins, to me, pretty much are all going down. But I think the Bills are still by far the favorite in this division. And the Dolphins will be fighting with the Patriots for third. Get in there, Jeff.
Thank you. Because I think Tua is going to be successful, but not in the way people think he's going to be successful. I think with Mike McDaniels, looking at what he did with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think you have a little bit of an upgrade with Tua. He's not going to just be beating people throwing down the field.
Yeah.
He's going to run that offense almost like it was in San Francisco. So Gesicki now becomes Kittle. I think there was a reason why they went and got Tyreek Hill, because he's going to be that Deebo Samuel's role.
There you go.
I think they're going to set that offense up like a faster 49ers offense. That's what they're going to be. And honestly, it's starting to excite me a little bit for Hill.
Yeah.
And it's exciting me a little bit for Gesicki. Now, with the running backs, I think they're going to be the same way. You're going to have probably a different guy starting every other week. Somebody's going to be hurt. But if Mostert pops, if he does not get hurt, man, that's a very, very sneaky guy to have. Maybe they're not going to be using Chase Edmonds as much as they had planned on. If Mostert stays healthy and he produces like he did while he was with the 49ers with that line, man, it could be scary good. I'm looking at three of those guys. I'm thinking Tyreek Hill. I'm waiting for him to fall in fantasy drafts. I'm watching for Gesicki. And then I'm also watching for Mostert. I think Tua is just going to, basically be a better manager. He's going to pop some passes here, maybe to Waddle. Waddle and Tyreek might switch off. You never know. But I think, they've got a recipe brewing that could work. Yeah. So what do you think about that, Zach?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, for me,
I love it.
I don't know. For me, I think they paid Chase Edmonds more money than they're paying Raheem Mostert. They brought him in on a longer deal. And then when you factor in the passing work that Chase Edmonds is going to get, I think that makes him the more fantasy relevant option, in my opinion. But they'll both probably end up being hurt at some point in the season. And when one of them's hurt, the other one should do fairly well.
Yeah, you'll never know when to play them when they go off. You'll never know. Like Raheem Mostert could have a 2-touchdown, 120-yard game, but you'll never know it, and he'll get injured the next week. So it's
how long before was the Edmonds signing before the Tyreek Hill trade?
about a week.
I don't know if they would have signed Edmonds had they known they were going to get Hill. They may move a running back during the season.
Gaskins most likely.
Well,
He's basically no money owed. He's like a 7th-round pick, so he for sure probably. Solomon Ahmed.
Which running back do I want to let
you look at it; it's a net positive over the other running backs,
Yeah.
but it's going to be the same thing as last year. You'll never know when to start Gaskin.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a mess and a half in that backfield. But let's move on to Jeff's pick. We're going to start with Matt Ryan for you, Jeff. So why do you think Matt Ryan is a big winner this offseason?
I think he's got a little bit left in the tank. He is now with a better offensive-minded head coach. Arthur Smith was a horrible hire for that Atlanta offense. Why do you hire a guy that wants to hand the ball off to a running back that you don't have? That's basically Arthur Smith. It made no sense last year with that pairing between Matt Ryan and Arthur Smith. So I kind of washed that year away. I think Matt Ryan still has a little bit left in the tank, and I think he is with a coach now that can at least make him very serviceable. Phillip Rivers, I think he had a lot less in the tank than Matt Ryan did when he was the quarterback of the Colts, and he was a sneaky pickup. With Pittman, they've got a couple of guys. You got Jonathan Taylor still. I think there's going to be, they might even pick up another receiver in the draft. So I think they're going to surround him with some pieces, and I think they're going to actually, with that line as well, I think he's going to have a surprising season. I think he can still throw the ball. He's got probably just an upgraded offense around him. So he's surprising, and that's why I say he's a winner, because he got the hell out of Atlanta with a horrible play caller. When you got a guy that's playing running back and receiver, yeah, he needed to be out of there.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. I think our man is a little frozen, but yeah, no, I like Michael Pittman.
I like the point where you're talking about.
There he is. He's back.
Go ahead, Zach.
Oh yeah.
Hold on.
Go ahead, Zach. You go
Zach,
first.
you're there. We see you.
All right,
Okay.
I'm back now.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah,
There you go.
I like the point that Jeff made, because Jeff was talking about the Falcons running backs suck, and Cordell Patty's terrible. I agree, 100%. So I love that point there. But getting back to Matt Ryan, when you talk about the Colts, he's finally got a wide receiver one, which he didn't have. I still wouldn't be surprised they bring in Julio Jones to that offense as well. So I definitely think it's a big upgrade behind a great offensive line for an old quarterback who's not quite as mobile as he used to be. So I think it's a perfect fit. And you're right, he's out of Atlanta, so he actually has wide receivers to throw to. We'll see who else the Colts bring in. But I am excited about that. Anything Will or Zach wants to add to the Matt Ryan?
I just like the effect of Matt Ryan for Michael Pittman Jr. I think there was a lot of questions just for the Colts offense in general, like who's going to be quarterback when Carson Wentz get traded. So I think you definitely could do a lot worse than Matt Ryan for the other pieces around him.
Yep.
I'm dropping all the Colt players down a few notches.
Oh,
I'm telling you.
Reverse card.
Actually, the only one that may go up is Taylor. The only one that may go up is Taylor, because I think
Okay.
I don't know if Matt Ryan can get through the whole season. And I still don't know who their number 2 wide receiver is. And honestly, yeah, Pittman had a good season, but I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I think the Colts were one of the bigger losers in the quarterback shuffle. And they overplayed their hand. They moved. I get Wentz. I get it. And you're mad about that last game of losing to Jacksonville. But this is a franchise that seemed like they overreacted to me, and they let the owner dictate get rid of the quarterback. I understand, but then what was the option? Matt Ryan? You can't tell me they went into the offseason saying we're going to trade Wentz and we're going to get Matt Ryan. That could not be their number one choice.
I think it could work out, man. I mean, it's worked before with Rivers. And trust me, the Colts, they have a lot of underrated wide receivers on that team. They had some guys in preseason, man, that look like they could become stars. They're going to find a number 2 wide receiver this year. And I trust Frank Wright. That's the whole thing, man.
Well, there you go. We'll see how good of a coach Frank Wright is. Because Wright is, he got Wentz. He was the guy that got Wentz to play and all that. And he didn't last 1 year. They got rid of him. No. Wow. I think Frank Wright could be the first coach fired this season. He better get it right. Because they'll.
Wow.
If he doesn't get it right, he'll be gone.
He'll be gone. Sure.
Yep.
This is a prove it year for Matt Ryan and for Frank Reich. But let's move on. We're going to talk about my next winner from the offseason. This is a team that I thought someone else was going to talk about. And since I always make my picks last, I think I was going to get to talk about these guys, but I'm going to talk about the Cleveland Browns. You got Deshaun Watson, who has 3 QB5 finishes. To me, that's a big upgrade there at the quarterback position. You get Amari Cooper, who finally gets to be the absolute number 1 on the team, not fighting for targets like he was in Dallas. And then they still have the ability to bring in another wide receiver, whether they're bringing Jarvis back, Odell. There's lots of names rolling around there. But overall, Cooper gets an upgrade. I think when you're looking at Nick Chubb's value, you can't stack the box against the running game anymore with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. You have to look out for that wide receiver. So you can't do that like they're doing with Baker. When you look at Kareem Hunt, Deshaun Watson has a history of throwing to the running back. When he played with Duke Johnson for that one season, he had 62 targets. So that's definitely a lot of receptions coming Hunt's way on an offense that's going to score more touchdowns, which is good for everyone on that team, including Hunt and Chubb. You look at David Njoku, who now is no longer competing with Austin Hooper for targets at the tight end position. So that's an upgrade for him. And then you look at a guy like Donovan.
Michigan, baby. Peoples Jones. Go Big Blue.
Yeah. It's that Canadian Wi-Fi.
All right, so are we anyone want to jump in on Cleveland?
I mean, I didn't want to be obvious. Went down Cleveland.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
not my favorite city to go to.
Favorite city.
I once went to a
back.
White Castle in Cleveland.
He's moving.
Oh, you went to White Castle. There's a story.
He's back. Finish what
you were
saying.
I think to me, the Cleveland Browns, to me, they upgraded. Everyone on that roster took an upgrade at every position I just stated. Do you guys have anything to add to that? Any worries other than Deshaun Watson's suspension? Because no one has any idea what's going to happen with that, including the league right now. But that's the only negative I can see this season.
Yeah, I mean, he led the league in passing yards with, some pretty mediocre to bad wide receivers. So I'm excited to see what he can do with Amari Cooper, potentially Jarvis Landry. You talk about the run game, all upgrades from basically all of the surrounding pieces of Deshaun Watson's entire time in Houston. So for him, it's an upgrade for sure. And I like it. And I got him in Dynasty. I traded him, got him for a good value. Wasn't thrilled about the Cleveland destination at first, but I'm like, whatever. So see what happens.
It's growing on you.
Yep.
I definitely think it's a good fit. Anything Will or Jeff want to add to that?
Not to me. That's the only thing. There's just that suspension looming. If it's going to happen, that's the only thing that kind of scares me. And there's something up that they haven't let Baker fully go yet. So that's the other thing that I'm looking at. So, whatever's coming down the pipeline, between that suspension and karma, Those are the only two things that can stop him. But other than that, if everything works out and he was innocent like he says he is, I'm hoping he tears up the league. But, we'll see what karma has to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest question is who is really the number 2 wide receiver? And do they sign somebody else? I'm not sure they're going to draft a wide receiver in the second round. I don't know. They only have their second round pick, right? So it's the third round. So, are they really going to go with Peoples? They need another veteran, right? They definitely need another veteran, So it'll be interesting to see if they make a trade or do something. But they need one more wide receiver there, because if they lost, if what's his name gets hurt, Cooper.
Whoo.
Which is likely.
It'll be interesting.
They're going to bring in, if I had to guess, they'll bring in Will Fuller for as long as he can stay healthy. But he'll be good for the first 4 weeks. And then he'll get hurt. And then it'll be Donovan Peoples-Jones' team. So.
Yes. I can already see the waiver wire pickup.
Let's move on to. Let's move on to Zach's next guy who said he's no longer playing with TikTok. Go ahead, Zach.
That's it. You just said it. He's not going to do TikTok anymore and focus on the absolute monster talents that this young man has. That's Juju Smith-Schuster, the former Pittsburgh Steeler, who arguably you can make a case he might be the number 1 winner of this whole offseason. He went from a forgotten star of the past to Mahomes' number 1 wide receiver overnight. And you figure the effect that Kelsey had with Hill, even if it's not to the full ability that Tyreek Hill has, you look at it, like Juju Smith-Schuster has a 1,400-yard season under his belt. This guy he's not a slouch by any means. And that was playing with a aging Ben Roethlisberger with Antonio Brown, who's a Hall of Fame, as nutty as he is. He's still one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. And now he has the ability to mature. I mean, you can make all these narratives. It just makes sense. He's saying he's not going to do TikTok anymore. He's Patrick Mahomes' number 1 wide receiver. Like, it has all the makings of just a juicy fantasy offseason story. The first one-handed catch in training camp video that NFL posts, his ADP is just going to skyrocket. So I hope for Juju's sake he turns it around, matures a little bit, understands that he's got some gifts, and he can make a ton of money, playing a child's game.
True.
Yeah, I think it's for sure a huge addition there for the Chiefs, and it's a big bump for Juju's value when it comes to fantasy, as opposed to being the wide receiver 2 or 3 for the Steelers. He's now the wide receiver 1 for one of the best offenses in the league. They did bring in MVS, so we'll see what happens. I'm not excited about MVS really because he can't seem to catch a ball. So Juju should see a lot of targets, and without seeing a lot of double coverage because you still got Kelsey to worry about there. So definitely excited about that. Anything you, Jeff or Will, wants to add to that?
That's my whole thing. I'm not necessarily sold on him as being the number 1 receiver there. They've got so many receivers. I think they're being very quiet about Josh Gordon for a reason. And I was looking at that, before certain things were done, why they were actually willing to let Tyreek walk, man. We got to remember Josh Gordon was the freak before Tyreek. He was the dude that was just like, this guy is unstoppable. So I'm wondering I'm hoping he's got something left in the tank as well. I'm thinking that they've seen something. Maybe they're just keeping it, under wraps, letting everybody think that all these other guys are going to be the wide receiver 1, and this dude just busts out. So I'm waiting to see what happens, man. That's the only thing. I just have no idea, other than Travis Kelce, who Patrick Mahomes is going to make his number 1 receiver. I mean, it was bad enough last season. You had Robinson, then you had Pringle going off, and it was just like Tyreek was a special guy in that offense. And I just don't know who that special guy is going to be yet.
The Chiefs will trade up. They'll use those 2 first-round picks at the bottom of the draft to move into the mid-teens. and get whoever they think is a top wide receiver on the board.
That would be saucy.
Cheap
I love
contract.
it.
Definitely
Though.
do that.
That's
for
smart.
Sure.
That's
I
smart
can
because
see
they
it.
have what, like the 30th in like 20 years.
29th
29th
and 30th.
29.
29th, 30th.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting
I
there
like
at,
Jamison Williams. If he comes off of that ACL nicely,
yeah,
that's
It's
another
like a
speed
sprained
guy
ankle
right
now.
there.
yeah,
It's like
Yeah.
all the it's crazy. It's like ACL used to be
Yeah.
the end of a career. Now it's like
yeah.
they come back
Yeah.
Yeah.
from Achilles tears now.
In a few
Yeah, I
months.
mean, I'm with
Uh-oh. Yeah, here
I
we
like
go.
Jamison Williams though. That's a good name to drop. I think he would have been the number 1 wide receiver if he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
they could probably get him at the bottom of round 1.
Exactly.
Yeah, they might not even imagine if they could go like, because the running backs don't go early anymore in first round. Imagine
Yeah.
if like Brees Hall or Kenneth Walker's just sitting there and they can go Jameis Williams, Kenneth Walker, or Brees Hall. How crazy
Ooh.
like that. That offense is silly, or
Man.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a win for the Chiefs, right? Because even if they trade up and get a lineman, they move up into, to maybe 13, 14 and get a tackle. Or, I mean, the Chiefs have the ability to really, as much as Tyreek Hill losing him is going to hurt them in some ways, it actually, their front office is pretty good at moving. And so it'll be interesting. And then that, talk about dynasty. Are you going to take?
and you still got 1-5. I think that's all that matters.
That's
Yeah.
right.
1-5's on the field. So
Yeah. Well, maybe OBJ.
I am back. Apparently, my
All
Wi-Fi
right.
dislikes
Isaac.
recording videos.
I don't know why. It's crazy.
My Wi-Fi just hates whenever I do everything else except for record videos.
Corey.
I don't get it. But let's move on. Will and Jeff, you both have the same guy you want to talk about here. So let's hear about Russell Wilson. Jeff, we'll start with you since he is a former Seattle Seahawk.
unlimited.
Man, I mean, he's got some capable receivers. He really does. He's got a capable tight end.
Yeah.
He's got capable running backs. I mean, that whole offense is like you've got a bunch of toys here that you can go ahead and play with. And you've got a line. He's got everything at his disposal right now. So and he still has a good quality defense as well. So I'm like, there's not a lot more that he could have asked for. I mean, I think it's the perfect place. He was in a situation where a team, all they needed was a capable quarterback, and he's in that position now. So it just really, really upgrades them, man. And then you've got an offensive minded head coach that has, worked with one of arguably the greatest quarterbacks of all time and put together I think an offense that actually has more to offer than what he had in Green Bay. So, I mean, a lot of stuff looking up for him, man. I think Cortland Sutton is still a stud. A lot of people are saying that he's underperformed. He hasn't really shown anything. Remember, he was coming off of a huge injury, and he still had a decent season. Waiting to see what Jerry Jeudy, and then they always have some other guy that comes up, whether it's Tim Patrick or somebody else they get in the 5th round that ends up showing up as well. So, I think they're going to have a really, really nice offense there that he's going to thrive in. Which they could have had him back in the draft if they didn't draft Brock Osweiler, but that's another story. Go ahead and leave that one alone.
Yeah, Will, you want to add anything to that?
Okay, Russ is going to cook, man. And I'm hoping in my redraft leagues, I'm hoping that people are kind of like, and he falls because you can get him in the mid rounds and he becomes like a QB, top 3 QB. Woo.
Yeah.
I'm taking that.
There's definitely that option there because he has the wide receivers, as Jeff said.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've heard, Hackett's going to let Russ build the offense around Russ and do what Russ wants and what Russ does well. And what Russ does well is get the ball to his guys in open field and let them do the rest. And the Broncos have the wide receivers to be able to do that. So I'm definitely excited about everyone on that entire offense. To me, that's another offense where everyone gets an upgrade with the change at quarterback. When you're looking at Sutton, Judy, Patrick, looking at Albert OK over there. If you're looking at Javonte Williams, to me, everyone gets a bump up. So that's definitely a big increase. Anything you want to add to that, Zach, before we move on to some fantasy football losers?
No, you guys nailed it, Mr. Unlimited. Can't wait to see him cook. He supported 15 wide receivers basically every year with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So if he can apply that recipe to this Denver team, who knows? Sky's the limit.
Yeah, the sky is definitely the limit for that team. But with that being said, we're going to move on to some fantasy football losers after this offseason. I'm going to start us off with a guy I touched on in the news segment. I'm going to start off with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. His best finish so far, being the number one running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, was running back 22 in his rookie season. And you're bringing a guy like Ronald Jones, who is still only 24. He's bigger and stronger than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Ronald Jones actually had the second. He finished second in yards over expected and runs between the tackles, only second to Derrick Henry last season. So that's something that he adds, that running game in the middle. He can catch the ball. That's not really what he was utilized for in Tampa because they had Leonard Fournette, Giovanni Bernard. But I think that's an asset that he can add to his game. And to me, that this hurts Clyde Edwards-Helaire's value a lot, as, Williams is a free agent, McKinnon is a free agent. Maybe they were going to let Clyde, this Clyde's backfield. And after drafting in the first round, you would have thought, let's get Clyde involved. But me bringing in Ronald Jones, saying we're going to give this guy the ball, we want him to be a big asset in our offense. That's just terrible for Clyde Edwards-Helaire's fantasy value. I hope no one drafted him in Dynasty when he was drafted to the Chiefs. But anything you guys want to add to that? I'm not touching Clyde Edwards-Helaire in any of my drafts this year.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say that I think Ronald Jones is actually a positive thing for CEH. I think they could have went with some other options in the passing game. I do agree with the sentiment of what you're saying. It definitely makes sense. And Ronald Jones is certainly one of those guys that's like always been on the brink of showing that he's capable of being like an explosive player. And it's just like every time you start to believe, he like completely, hits the bed. So Leonard Fournette. Right, exactly. I mean, Leonard Fournette had a pretty awesome season being the running back ahead of Ronald Jones before he got injured. So he figured it's not like he can totally take him out of the game. If CEH can just show up in the passing game, it won't be as bad. But yeah, as somebody who has Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Dynasty, certainly wasn't thrilled when they brought in Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I think that the touchdown upside, which kind of hadn't been there yet, that some people were kind of hoping for, I think that dies with the addition of Ronald Jones. So yeah, the passing game could be there, but if the Chiefs decide to bring back Jerick McKinnon, then your passing game is probably no longer there anymore because Jerick's better out of the backfield. Will or Jeff want to add anything to talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
It's always very sneaky with Andy Reid, man. I have, gone into drafting one of his running backs, and then hell, Spencer Ware ends up taking over. And that's what happens. If Ronald Jones doesn't win it during the camp battle, as soon as Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets hurt, and if Ronald Jones shows a flash like McKinnon did, man, his days are numbered. That's the only thing. I see Andy Reid taking him, man, and making him into something like he did with Kareem Hunt. To tell you the truth, their body type resembles each other. So he's in a fresh new place, fresh new offense, man. Eric Bieniemy, a former running back himself, if he gets to Jones and starts showing him some stuff, it's a little scary. And plus, they're going to bring in some other running backs as well. So again, you're probably looking at a running back by committee. So
yeah, it's not exciting for any of the Kansas City Chiefs running backs, in my opinion. Ronald Jones probably has the higher upside just due to the fact that he's going to get the goal line work, but it's not going to be reliable. Anything you want to add, Will, before we move on?
If let's say they're sitting there at the bottom of the draft and first round they take Bryce Hall, I'm not sure Clyde's even on the roster at the start of the season.
Wow.
just to put Hall on the bench. I think they already did this once, didn't they? Draft running back at the end of the first.
Yeah, but you're sitting there 29 and 30. That's where running backs are going to be. Like, look, there's guys that are first round grades that won't get drafted in the first round at running back because running back's so diluted, right? And from a fantasy perspective, and then you think for us, but then the cap perspective for Kansas City, that's that bottom of that first round is really the sweet value for cap. You get a guy for 5 years, but he's at the bottom of the first round, so you're not paying top 10 pick money. I don't put anything by the Chiefs. I don't. Their front office is going to put a team together, and if they think there's someone they can put in that backfield, because I'm not sure Ronald Jones is an every down back for them. And so, I think they might be done on Clyde. They might be like, hey, this just didn't work out. If we could trade him, great.
Trade him away?
Yeah.
Or cut him.
It's not you, it's me.
Just completely move on. That'd be
Zach, you're right. I'm not drafting him. I don't even know if you can really draft the KC running back until late rounds because, Ronald Jones. But do we really think Ronald Jones is a 3-down back in that KC offense?
No, I think he's a 2-down back.
Yeah, and if he's out of the passing game, what's his real value? Okay, so touchdowns on short yardage.
Yeah, with Tyreek Hill being gone, if he can take over some of that red zone work with the handoffs and everything that they were giving to him, and now that they actually have a guy who can pound the rock, who's not 5'8", like little Clyde Edwards-Helaire there, they can definitely work that into their offense. But let's move on. Zach, we're going to go to you. You want to talk about Antonio Gibson? I definitely agree with this, but I'll let you talk about him first.
Antonio Gibson, it's got to be one of the most frustrating players in fantasy, especially at the running back position. I mean, it's tough. We talked about Carson Wentz earlier, and he's coming off a season where his running back was the best in the NFL. So it's like, oh, man, what do you do here? And you're like, okay, well, McKissick's going to ship out. Psych, he's staying too. There must be something really brewing with the Commanders for him to want to not play for a championship contending team.
Yeah.
So all of those pieces together, it's just hard to see Antonio Gibson go any further than where he's been. I'm not saying that he's not going to have a great season, but there was this hype around this idea of him being the every down back or the only guy in town, and that really kind of went away really quickly. And with Carson Wentz there, you got Terry McLaurin, so it's see what they do in the draft. But who knows? I feel like it just capped his ceiling. He's not so much a loser, just kind of not the offseason you wanted for him.
No, I think he's a loser. Bring McKissick back, you have
loser.
Yeah, when you bring McKissick back, that gets rid of his entire third down work, because that's what McKissick is. That you're paying him $8 million now over the next 2 seasons to play third downs and to catch balls. And if you were hoping for an Antonio Gibson breakout, you're hoping that was going to come through the air. And McKissick just ruined that completely.
Yeah.
So
McKissick gets like Alvin Kamara targets, like on the low. If you look up his stats, he gets like 80 targets in the season. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's a target hog. Anything Will or Jeff want to add to that?
Man, one guy, I look at the Commanders, and again, they're one of those teams that even though Gibson is there, he's supposed to be the RB1. It's a slash with McKissick. The guy that's there, Jared Patterson, he could end up – he's one of those guys that I've always watched, and that's what scares me about that whole backfield. You just don't know what you're going to get. You got 2 guys, especially with Gibson. As soon as he has a toe problem, he's missing about 4 games, man. that, yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, not just because it's Wentz that came in there. It's just that backfield. You just don't know what. Hell, they just came up with the name, so there's just too many questions about that team in Washington. Regardless,
let's take command.
yes.
Yeah, it's just a terrible situation all around. Anything you want to add to that, Will? You're pretty much on the same page.
It's the Commanders. I'm not that excited.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the guy who I'm assuming you're also not excited about, that you and Jeff both nominated. We're going to be talking about Aaron Rodgers, since Will is our resident hating on any NFC North quarterback.
Including Kirk Cousins.
Including all of them. Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, all of them.
All of them.
So go ahead. Tell us why Aaron Rodgers is the biggest or one of the biggest losers of the offseason.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around he signed that contract with no guarantee that they would just keep Adams. Because he's a great quarterback, honestly. Like, really, right? We could debate 1, 2, 3 in the history of the NFL, by far. And I know he's always made his wide receivers better. But it seems to me the Packers are going to push that theory to the limit this season. Because I have no idea. And maybe after the draft, maybe they'll sign OBJ or something. I don't know. I mean, who's he throwing to?
Robert Tonyan. Let's go.
Just gonna disrespect Alan Lazard like that.
Robert Tonyan. It's gonna be Robert Tonyan all year. All year, Robert Tonyan. I'm gonna hype Robert Tonyan up.
Can you imagine they draft a rookie and that's the only other wide receiver they bring in? Rodgers didn't handle working with veterans great when they dropped the ball.
Yeah.
All this pressure that's on the Packers to win it all this year. 5 games in and these wide receivers aren't catching the ball. That's going to get really ugly really quick in that team.
Yeah.
And so
he's got Randall Cobb. This just can be the Randall Cobb. And
I'm moving Randall Cobb into my top 10. I'm telling you, he's now number 9.
Target hog.
They're not even trying to sign anybody. So they must be going with a draft because not like they don't have a little bit of space to navigate with. They're not signing anybody. Jeff's going to say something. Go ahead, Jeff.
See, that's what scares me. I've done my research on this one. While Aaron Rodgers has been there, they've always been able to find a receiver for him, whether it's Donald Driver, James Jones, Jennings, Jordy Nelson. The list goes on and on. Ted Thompson is no longer there. Yeah. It's Brian Gutekunst or whatever his name is. Yeah. And he's already missed on receivers. He drafted MVS. He drafted Amari Rodgers. These guys didn't do anything. And if you'll notice in that game against San Francisco, as soon as they took Devontae Adams away, that's when their offense stalled. Yeah. So now who the hell do you have? And who do you trust to go in there and find Aaron Rodgers another capable receiver? That is my whole thing. I mean, the guy that was able to find receivers, that's why I'm not as worried about Kansas City, because they found Tyreek Hill in the 3rd round, 2nd round, might even been in the 4th round. They find receivers. Green Bay, the guy that actually found receivers is no longer there, and their current GM hasn't found them a receiver yet that has panned out to be a true number one receiver. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did well with A.J. Dillon. Yeah, he did well with Jair Alexander, but those guys aren't really there to specifically help Aaron Rodgers throw the ball downfield. So that's why I'm looking at him as possibly being in trouble this year, because they don't have that guy. They don't have the guy that knows how to find that guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rodgers could, possibly turn out to be a guy for them. He really didn't get the opportunity last year. He had a couple drops from what I remember watching. But Marquez Valdez-Scantling struggled with drops, and he just got paid $30 million. So I guess he can't be that bad in the eyes of another team. So maybe Rodgers is the problem. Maybe Rodgers just gets in these guys' heads. So we'll see how that works out. Anything you want to add to that, Zach?
What? Aaron Rodgers plays psychological games? What? No, they have to find someone else. His depth chart is horrible. This offseason has really shaken things up, and teams are making super teams now. And you have a team that goes 13-3 every year, just can't get over the hump, and now just lost all of the thing that made them so great, in my opinion, offensively. So be tough to see what they do.
It is tough, but we're going to stay in the NFC North. We're going to go to one of my losers from this offseason. And to me, that's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think a lot of people thought Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to be the wide receiver 1 in Detroit, but they bring in DJ Chark, who to me I'm a big fan of, on a 1-year, $10 million deal. So I think that takes away a lot of his targets. TJ Hawkinson's going to be coming back. When he gets healthy this offseason, that takes away some targets. We all know how we feel about DeAndre Swift eating up into that target share. So for me, I think Amon-Ra really turns out to be a loser from this offseason, just due to the fact that the targets that he saw in the later half of last year aren't going to be there for him. I still think he could be fantasy relevant, but I don't think he's going to be a week in, week out starter when it comes to your fantasy football team, as he could have been if they didn't add a high-quality wide receiver like DJ Chark. We've seen DJ Chark go on absolute tears when he's healthy with subpar quarterback play. So, it doesn't matter, Jared Goff, whoever's throwing him the ball, as long as DJ Chark's on the field, he will be the wide receiver 1, in my opinion. But, he could still get hurt, and then Amon-Ra comes back out to be the wide receiver 1. Just for me at this time, Amon-Ra, I had to drop him down in my rankings with the addition of DJ Chark. You guys also worried about the targets not being there with TJ, DJ, DeAndre?
You should be worried. You should be worried anytime someone's on the Lions, and you should be worried when their starting quarterback is Jared Goff. That's just the truth. Now, I will say, if the Lions draft Malik Willis at number 2, I think that you have to have a discussion about at least the dynasty value of
It's not happening.
I hope it happens. I so hope it happens.
They're talking about teams may have to trade up to the number 1 pick to get him.
I so hope Detroit goes Malik Willis.
Because he threw a deep bomb to a wide open person in shorts. He's now projected. It just kills me, the scouting in the league. Oh my goodness!
Kenny Pickett. That's who they're going to take. They're not taking a quarterback.
I hope they take a quarterback just so the Panthers can be smart and not take a quarterback, because if their guy's not there, better chance we're smart with our draft pick. So I hope, let's go Detroit, take Malik Willis, so the Panthers aren't tempted to screw themselves over.
Well, even if the Lions do take Malik Willis, I still don't think it helps Amon-Ra St. Brown out, because I think he was just the result of a target funnel in the absence, like you said, of DeAndre and TJ and AJ. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of those guys where if you just pull up his stats, his last end of season game log, you're like, oh my God, this guy's a superstar. And then you realize he was the only person on the field. So
yeah, he was great when he got 12 targets a game. A lot of people can put up good numbers when they get those targets. But as Will said, he's a Lion. Jared Goff, Malik Willis, doesn't matter who's going to be throwing him the ball. He won't be getting 12 targets a game. He'll probably be in that, 6 maybe range, and that's maybe. Like, it'd probably be less in some games, and that's not something you want on a bad offense with a poor quarterback. So, I'm just staying away, Amon-Ra. It was nice last season, but the future not so bright. Zach, let's move on to your next guy, which also leads into Jeff's pick. So we'll start with you, and then Jeff wants the entire team. So go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, this is a fantasy darling sweetheart of a player that everyone loves when they have on their team because he's always a draft day value, and you never really notice it. But at the end of a Sunday or whenever he plays, you're like, wow, Tyler Lockett just like easily put up like 27 points because he just caught like 3 moon balls from Russell Wilson. And that was really the specialty of Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson. You think back, I mean, Jeff, you obviously know better than all of us, the absolute mind melt that Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett had, where Russell could just be like throwing it over his head and it's a perfect back of the end zone, toe drag swag kind of catch. And I think not only do you go for that from Drew Lock at the moment, I think you guys will address the quarterback situation, but at the moment, Drew Lock is about as opposite of that mind melt I think you get that you have at Russell Wilson. So for those reasons, I'm out. I'm Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I
Tank.
think there's one situation where Tyler Lockett's value is higher than it was before, and that's if these Green Bay Packers we were talking about decide they want to go get themselves some Tyler Lockett, and we get to see Aaron Rodgers throwing those passes to Tyler Lockett. I would love to see that.
I'd
be
be
a
the
great
loser
fit.
in that situation. Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to happen. I just think it would be great. But yeah, Tyler Lockett's value without Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was his entire value. Just a connection they had that, no one else besides Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers could replicate when it came down to making sure you get the ball exactly where it needs to be. Jeff, you want to talk about the entire Seattle Seahawks, so go ahead. The floor is yours. Trash your own team.
I mean, we don't have a quarterback. That's basically it. They're talking about Drew Lock. Drew Lock is not going to start the season as their quarterback. Right. You got Drew Lock, Geno Smith. If
Geno Smith's not even on the roster
going into the season with, you might as well go ahead and you might as well just say we're tanking to try to get a high pick next year. Let me just go ahead and break this down. When Russ came on board, you had one of the top running games in place with a monster running back with Marshawn Lynch. Then you also had a up-and-coming top 10 defense that could go ahead and cover up some of the quarterback play, let's say, if we were looking at Matt Flynn at the time. So just in case, you don't have either one of those
disrespect
things in place
to
right
Matt
now.
Flynn. 6 touchdowns in a game. What are you talking about?
Anyway, you don't have either one of those things in place right now. I like Rashad Penny, but he is not Marshawn Lynch. We don't even have the line to support that running game right now. And then the defense, we don't even have things in place right now. So we don't have anything right now that can support a lackluster quarterback. We have to have a quarterback that can at least come in and at least just bring some excitement. That's where Malik Willis comes in.
Baker Mayfield.
That's the only name that I'm putting
Baker Mayfield.
Right now, I'd rather take Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick has more to his name from Tyler Lockett saying Colin Kaepernick has. That tells you that he is pulling for Colin Kaepernick more than Geno Smith, who he's played with during the season. So that just tells you there is nothing under the hood right now. It is a mess.
Rough. It's
a mess right now.
And that's why
until they get somebody, Drew Lock is not the quarterback. I'm sorry. If they walk into the first season of the game with Drew Lock, all of my royal blue type stuff, I will just go ahead and get a Sharpie or something and color over the light green with an orange pen, because I will just change everything, or just get a Denver Broncos sticker to put on. At least I could save the shirts, because there's no way in hell I can be pulling for the Seattle Seahawks with Drew Lock under center. Even Geno Smith, for that fact. They've got to do something to address that
Baker Mayfield.
position. Not even that's definitely not any of those guys. Baker Mayfield is not Russell Wilson. The only thing that they have in common is their stature. Baker Mayfield does not have half the arm that Russell Wilson has. He cannot throw that moon ball. He is not accurate as Russell Wilson. So we'll put that to bed right now. They need to go get Malik Willis. If they don't get him in the draft, they're done for this season.
Even with Malik Willis, they're done for this season.
Yeah, at least
I'll just pack it up and call it a season.
At least he's throwing the ball. Maybe I can count on his arm to maybe get it to Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf.
Yeah, because he made that one really good throw in his shorts, right? So
I'll take that over the other three guys. Trust me, I will. He'll at least be able to run the ball.
I mean, Rashad Penny's about to see 30 carries a game in this offense.
Rashad Penny might be spending a lot of time on the sideline hurt with that line right now. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dumpster fire. Anything you want to add, Will?
No, I'm a respect Jeff's feelings and just let that let that cut just try to heal.
All right, well let's move on to your last pick here, Will. I'll let you introduce.
Well, this was a hard pick for me because I'm not really sure they're losers, but I think there's a cycle.
I think they're losers.
Of course,
I hate all of them.
You hate New
Orleans.
All of them. I get it. I think the only team or person you hate more than the Saints is Cordell Patterson. But
yeah, probably
that's about it. But
wow.
I just think, what's the psychological hangover of not getting Deshaun Watson? Because they were they were trying, and so I just don't know. The coach left. You don't know what's going on with their number one wide receiver. You don't know.
Kamara might be facing suspension.
Right. And so, so I don't want to say they're losers yet, but they feel like it. And from a fantasy perspective, can you trust drafting one of their players high? Like, I don't know if Kamara, you could draft him in the first round just in a redraft. I don't know. So, the jury's still out. But if you had to make me decide today, like Zach did, I got to look at the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think Kamara's going to fall to the point where he's going to be a value in drafts, especially if he doesn't get suspended once that whole situation gets figured out. Because with Jameis Winston at quarterback, Alvin Kamara is going to be on the field more than he was when Sean Payton was there, because Sean Payton was always pulling Alvin Kamara out of the game to keep him healthy. So we'll see how he holds up under pretty much a full workload. There's still Mark Ingram in the backfield, so it'll still be a healthy split. But a big favor to Kamara with that. And I think he's going to get involved in the passing game, the running game. So for me, the only piece on this offense that I'm interested in is Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas, way too many question marks. I dislike Michael Thomas a lot, just from everything that he's done. He's
now, there's someone who can end up with the Packers.
Terrible person. I'm just gonna get surgery before the season. Screw my team. I don't care about them. Complains about not getting enough money, but we will see how I can't touch him. I
mean, he was just following his head coach's leadership, because Sean Payton didn't care about the team either. He just ran the checkup, said, I'm out. Drew's done. Yeah. So he was just,
at least he stayed for the season. He was there at every game,
and he regrets that. If he was on this show right now and having an honest conversation with us, he would have told you he should have left when Drew left.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Right. But Jeff, you look like you wanted to say something. So yeah,
you can't spell Winston without wins. Second thing, Taysom Hill committing to tight end. There's some breath in the Saints, baby. There's some breath left in the Saints.
What makes you think he's going to be a good tight end? What has he done? What has he done besides being overpaid? What has he done to say he's going to be a good tight end? We've rarely seen him out running routes. Anytime he's in the backfield, he's either blocking, handing off or throwing the ball.
He's got one up on Cordero Patterson. Now
Well, he's
he
better
is a
than Cordell
quarterback,
Patterson.
That's-
a running
Right.
back,
That's
and
fighting
a
words.
tight
Pew,
end,
pew,
baby. You
pew.
can't beat that.
Pew, pew, pew.
And he's
I
not
love
going to
it.
be a good tight end. He's
Andy
what,
Dalton.
31 years old already? 30, 31?
He can do anything. And Jameis Winston,
Except for be
the
good.
wins are
He
coming.
He can be
He's going to be
average.
eating those W's all season, especially against them Panthers.
I mean, I like Winston. I
doesn't.
like Winston. Winston is not my problem here. My problem is the fact that they're the Saints. If Jameis Winston was in Seattle right now, I would be super high on both Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf because they would be getting hella yards in that offense. You'd be letting Winston cook over there in Seattle, but in New Orleans with the new offense and Michael Thomas as his number one wide
He's stirring
receiver.
up gumbo right now. He's
Mm.
making
Nice,
gumbo, throwing those crabs in there, man.
It's just not a fun situation in my opinion. Alvin Kamara is the only one who you'll find on any of my fantasy football teams. I tried to pick up Taysom Hill in a 2 tight end dynasty league because he was on the waiver wire, but
2 tight end dynasty league.
Wow.
that's about it.
There's a format.
Yeah. We they wanted to add more trade value to the tight ends because no one was trading tight ends. So we decided that adding a second tight end would be better.
That's it. We'll make the problem worse.
Yeah. Hey, there's
Yeah.
only 6 good tight ends, so let's double that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fine now because I already had Kittle in that league. And since then, I picked up Hayden Hurst, CJ Uzama, Mo Alley Cox, and I already had Gerald Everett on my team. So now he's the number 1 tight end for Justin Herbert,
Wow.
so I'm fine with it.
How are there enough tight ends for the rest of the league at that point?
They don't have enough tight ends.
Yeah.
That's the plan. I'm just gonna wait until
It's an evil plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I spent like $100 fab to get all those guys. Once this whole 2 tight end thing, because we're starting that this year. We implemented it a couple years ago, but obviously you have to give everyone time to be able to acclimate their rosters. So I went big. I was like, yep, I want this guy and this guy. Now
Nice.
everyone has to trade me for the tight ends.
I like it.
But yeah, I think that's it. We went through all our fantasy football winners and losers from the offseason. I want to thank you guys for joining. I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, you can check us out. Our socials have been scrolling across the screen at the bottom the entire show. So you can go back. You can look at me, Pro Football Craze, Ocean State, which is Zach, and then Media, which is Jeff and Will. So thank you guys. Make sure you tune in again next week.
All right,
Yes,
Zach.
sir.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Fins up.
Okay.